Location 4. The name of this location is Keilah. It's K-E-I-L-A-H. K-E-I-L-A-H. We read about that in 1 Samuel 23, verse 5. 1 Samuel 23, verse 5. So David and his men went to Keilah and fought the Philistines with a great slaughter and brought away their cattle. So David delivered the people of Keilah. Also in verse 7, the same chapter, now it was told Saul that David had come to Keilah, and Saul said, God has delivered him into my hand, for he is shut in by going into a town that has gates and bars. Now, the word Keilah means fortress or enclosure. Fortress or enclosure. Now the interesting thing is that Keilah was a city that had gates all around the city. And Saul actually thought that he could catch David and his men in the city. And in the natural, when we look at our situation, often in the natural, we might find ourselves in a place where we feel that we are stuck. We are in a rut or in a situation where we cannot get out of the situation. However, from a spiritual perspective, God will use this position in your journey in order to bring refinement and purification to you. Think for a moment, here's the men, David and his men in the city of Keilah. Now all of a sudden they get the news, Saul and his army is on his way to wipe them out. The men of David were scared. They were in fear of the Philistines as well as Saul and his army. You see, our flesh can bring us to a place of fear and of weakness. And it's at this location that we see David consult God, and these men of David choose to follow David in spite of the situation and the circumstances. But it is in this place that they not only save themselves, but they also save others as well. They realize that it's through their joining with the spiritual father, with the set man, that they were able to overcome. You see, sometimes we cannot understand how a place can be both an enclosing and a fortress at the same time. The reason for that is that our weakness, in our weakness, strength is perfected. When you are weak, then you are strong. In 2 Corinthians 12, verse 9 and 10, it says, but he said to me, my grace, my favor and loving kindness and mercy is enough for you. It is sufficient against any danger and enables you to bear the trouble manfully. For my strength and power are made perfect, is fulfilled and completed, and show themselves most effective in your weakness. Therefore, I will all the more gladly glory in my weaknesses and infirmities, that the strength and the power of Christ the Messiah may rest, yes, may pitch a tent over and dwell upon me. So for the sake of Christ I am well pleased and take pleasure in infirmities, insults, hardships, persecutions, perplexities and distresses. For when I am weak in human strength, then am I truly strong, able, powerful in divine strength. So often you will find yourself at a place in your journey where you will ask yourself and say to yourself, what good can come out of this situation that I am facing? But the Lord is saying to you today, listen to the voice of your set man or your spiritual father. He will tell you how to overcome. David's men were in fear, but because they listened to their set man, to their spiritual father, they won the battle. You see, this is a hard thing for a son to come to the place of understanding this principle. Because what happens to us in the natural is you used to make your own plans. Come on. If you face a challenge, the first thing that you do is you say to yourself, how am I going to resolve this? How am I going to find the solution to this thing? You see, and often in this kind of times, when we are locked in and the pressure is there, we try and cope with what we are facing, and we never access the grace that God has placed in our lives. So as a son, you come to a place, you make a decision, this is the route for me to follow, and you follow your own mind, and you find yourself at the end of the day in deeper trouble than what you were before, because you made a couple of more stupid decisions, and you are now faced with the consequences of that decision. As a son, you need to understand that whenever you find yourself in this place of enclosement, capture, imminent threat, the safest thing for you to do is to go and sit at the feet of the Father, because there's grace that will unlock over your life. I've often seen it in the life of sons. I might not have the answer, I might not have the solution, but the mere action of coming and accessing grace causes them to, when they leave, all of a sudden clarity comes, all of a sudden direction comes, all of a sudden breakthrough comes, all of a sudden that which entraps, what pressurizes is removed. It's got nothing to do with you, it's everything to do with God's grace that is functioning. You are only the carrier, the vessel of that grace. So in that way, you need to understand that as a son, this position is also a place of safety. It is also a fortress for you. The place where you find safety is to partake of the grace of the spiritual Father that God has placed in your life. Failure to do so will cause you to face the consequences of that encampment, of that pressure that you are facing to manifest itself in your life. The next location that you will find yourself in is Ziph, Z-I-P-H, that's location number 5. Z-I-P-H. We read about it in 1 Samuel 23, verse 13 and 14. Then David and his men, about 600, remember they were 400 in the beginning, now they're 600, arose and left Keilah, going wherever they could go. When Saul was told that David has escaped from Keilah, he gave up going there. David remained in the wilderness strongholds in the hill country of the wilderness of Ziph. Saul fought him every day, but God did not give him into his hands. Now the word here, Ziph, means battlement, refining, and melting. It means battlement, refining, and melting. You see, in your journey of your sonship, you grow, and you start to grow spiritually. And now you will find yourself at this location where you've overcome certain areas of weaknesses in you, you've overcome certain areas in your life, but God wants to bring a deeper refining in your heart and in your life. And this is the location where this takes place, is at Ziph. It is here at Ziph that David and his men were betrayed. It is at this location, the spiritual location in your journey with your spiritual father, that others in the house and in the body, usually your own brothers and sisters, will start a refining work in you. People have a way of refining you and bringing you to a place where God needs you to be. The question that you need to ask yourself is, have that refining process started within you? Have you yet come to a position in your walk with God where you carry no offense in your heart? Or are there some people in the household where you belong to that still gives offense to you? You see, sometimes God will use people to test you and to bring you into that place where He wants you to be. Jacob had to overcome certain flaws within himself. That is why he was sent to Laban. In your journey, your spiritual father will either consciously or subconsciously lead you into a place and a position of refinement that will take place by others in your life. To try and make it practical is that your father will give you an assignment. And in that journey with that assignment, you will find that there will be challenges that comes to you. You will find all of a sudden that some of the sons in the house will tell you, oh, you are the father's apple of his eye. He's giving you all these things to do. They start talking about you. They start criticizing you. They start giving you a hard time. And they might even come to you and say to you, this thing that you are doing, I can do it better than what you are. Now the Father has given it to you to do. And then there comes offense in your heart. God will use this location in your journey of sonship to deal with every form and aspect of offense in your life. So my advice to you is deal with offense in your heart and your life at every possible level as quickly as possible. You've got to kill that thing called self in you. And don't tell me you are so spiritually mature or arrived that you never take any offense. Come on, people, be real. Okay? Don't tell me you never get angry, you never get frustrated, you never get irritated. As long as those things manifest itself in your heart and in your life, you can know there's still areas of offense in you that needs to be dealt with. You need to understand that your spiritual father will never place you in this position of offense on purpose with a vindictive purpose or intent. So, yes, as a father, I will put you in a place that frustrates you. It's not something that you like to do. But of all the other sons in the house, I will come and I will ask you to do the dishes. But the dishes is the one thing in your life that you really, really, really hate to do. I'd rather sweep the floor, I'd rather pack the tables, I'd rather do anything else, but don't ask me to do the dishes. And here comes good old spiritual father along the way, and he tells you, please, will you do the dishes for me? So what is your response? You see? And you have to understand that those are the kind of things that a spiritual father will do. Sometimes you will use things in the natural to unveil to you what is in your heart. if there's a lack of servanthood in your life, you will find all of a sudden the Father starts asking you to pack the chairs, to shift the tables, to do all kind of funny stuff. And I mean, you have been in the house now already for 5 or 6 years. You are one of the mature sons in the house. You know, you've even been allowed to preach a couple of times. And now what is in your heart? What surfaces in your heart? Is, oh, but why must I pack the chairs? It's for the young sons in the house that still needs to learn how to serve. No. As a father, you never stop serving. Might be on different dimensions, it might be in different ways, but servanthood never stops. So a father will put you in places and into situations where whatever there is in your character that needs to be dealt with can be dealt with. And he will use circumstances and situations never to put you in a bad place. Never because he wants to break you. Never because he wants to give you a hard time. But he's after one thing, and you must remember this. A spiritual father is serious to see the manifestation of Christ in your life. So if you come to him running and say to him, oh, I have had this breakthrough in my life, and I've overcome this thing, and now expect the Father to slap you on the shoulder and say, well done, my son, I'm so proud of you. You might find yourself in the place where the Father says, this is not good enough. You need to get now to the next level. And this is what a father does. You need to understand as a son that your father will continue to push you, to push you, to push you, to go to the next level, because he's after one thing and one thing only, and that is to see Christ manifested into your heart and into your life. He is not there to give you a titty bottle and change your nappies for you. He is there to make sure that you come to a place of maturity in Christ. He's after one thing only, and that is to see Christ revealed. The Father will continue to push you into your destiny, and there will be this process of refinement until you get there. And you must remain pure in this process. In Genesis 37 verse 13, we look at the life of Joseph. One day, Israel said to Joseph, do not your brothers shepherd my flock at Shechem? Come, I will send you to them. And Joseph's response was, here I am. You see, instant obedience came from Joseph. He said, here am I. Also, when we look at the life of Joseph, years later, he had no vengeance or hatred or offense in his heart. He didn't hold a grudge because of what they did to him by putting him in the pit and selling him into slavery. He demonstrated Christ's character. Why is it so important then that there must not be any offense? The reason is plain and simple, that the ministry must not be blamed or suffer any disrepute. Your position, both as a father and as a son, must always be, forgive them, Father, for they know not what they are doing. Both Jesus and Stephen took this position. Not everyone is at the same spiritual position as what you are. And sometimes God allows this refining to take place so that certain flaws in your character can be eradicated. It is a difficult position to take, But you have to follow your spiritual father in how he leads you in this process. And also imitate his example during this experience. David consistently forgave Saul as he kept on trying to kill him. The men of David followed in the example that David has set. When Saul died, these men of David also mourned, they also wept, and they also fasted together with David. They carried within them the heart of their father. They aligned themselves with what was in the heart of the father. If we read about that in 2 Samuel 1 verse 11 and 12, when it says, Then David grasped his own clothes and tore them, and so did all the men with him. They mourned and wept for Saul and Jonathan his son, and fasted until evening for the Lord's people and the house of Israel because of their defeat in battle. What am I saying to you? I'm saying to you, pursue your spiritual father. The only reason these men could come to this position is because they pursued David in all things. They were deeply connected to David and had an accurate model to follow. And David consistently constrained and restrained these men from bringing any harm to Saul in any way. And in this way, because of his conduct, because of his behavior, David demonstrated practically to his men that he was free from bitterness, anger, resentment, and unforgiveness. One of the worst possible pains that you can feel as a person is when somebody who is close to you betrays you or hurts you. And the thing that you need to understand, most of the time, it is not the people outside of the house that will hurt you. It is the people in the church that will hurt you. And when those people hurt you, it hurts like nothing else. It's the deepest hurt that you can experience. Joseph knew this hurt. And if we read the scripture and see how he responded, in Genesis 45 verse 5, when he met with his brothers, what did Joseph say? He said, But now, do not be distressed, or disheartened, or vexed, and angry with yourselves because you sold me here. For God sent me ahead of you to preserve life. See, Joseph had an understanding that God purposed him to go through these refinements, through these struggles, because God had a purpose at the end of the day that he could deliver the nation of Israel. Joseph said, do not be grieved, do not be sad. Let me ask you today, how many of us sitting here today are still harboring grief or grudges against people that have hurt us, or that is where the church has wronged us, where other Christians has failed us? Joseph's response to his brothers was, do not be sad and do not be angry at yourself. And we have to come at this location to the same position. You need to constantly take this position, and you've got to exercise it as an act of your will. It's not just going to happen. You have to consciously decide to live a life of no offense. The question that I ask you today is, can you do that? As a father, your sons will leave you. Your sons will offend you. They will talk behind your back. They will criticize you. They will challenge you. As a father, you need to be in this place of no offense. As a son, you will find your father will circumcise you. What is going to arise in your heart? Offense? Anger? Resentment? See, often we become so offended and we do not realize that it is the hand of God that is busy dealing with us. And we have such a good example here with Joseph, because Joseph was able to look beyond his own flesh. He could see God's divine intent, that God planned him to be in this place, and that God's heart was not for him to be hurt and betrayed, but it was part of the journey. And sometimes God takes us on certain journeys in order to purify us, and He will use others, and through this His will in our lives can and will be accomplished. If you look at Romans 8 verse 13 and 14, it says, "For if you live according to the dictates of the flesh, you will surely die. But if through the power of the Holy Spirit you are habitually putting to death, making extinct the evil deeds prompted by the body, you shall really and genuinely live forever." All who are led by the Spirit of God are sons of God. The Zoe life, the life of God, the God life, is when you live life by the Spirit and not by the flesh. And whenever there is offense in your heart, an offense in your life, that is where you allow the flesh to manifest. Galatians 5 verse 25 and 26 says, "If we live by the Holy Spirit, let us also walk by the Spirit. If by the Holy Spirit we have our life in God, let us go forward, walking in line, our conduct controlled by the Spirit. Let us not become vainglorious and self-conceited, competitive and challenging and provoking and irritating to one another, envying and being jealous of one another." So, God's demand for you and me is that we shall live by the Spirit and not by the carnality of our flesh. And even in a father and son relationship, the relationship needs to be pursued by the Spirit and not by the flesh. In other words, don't build a sentimental relationship with your spiritual father. Don't build a sentimental relationship with a son. Build your relationship with one another according to the Spirit. Discern one another by the Spirit and live by the Spirit. Then you will be effective in your father-son relationship. Amen? Amen.